Okay, we are back. This is our second video. This is my wife Brittany sitting beside me. We have kind of changed the scene since our first video. We're trying to get settled on a background, which we haven't figured out. We have this whiteboard behind us. I may doodle later just for entertainment. I haven't decided yet. But the point that we need to move to is furthering our discussion from the first video about DCS and how your rights change with a DCS case.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the weird thing about a DCS case is it's not criminal, so you don't have the protections that a criminal case has, but it can turn criminal on you very quickly. And it, to me, it feels that your rights are skirted because they don't quite call it criminal.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the Sixth Amendment of the United States Constitution, and probably for most states, um, you have the right to face your accuser. Uh, but because DCS cases or CHINS cases, which is Child in Need of Services, because they don't start out as criminal cases, they start out as more or less civil cases. Uh, they don't have to disclose your accuser to you. So if your baby mama or your ex-wife or your ex-husband calls in a DCS report, well, you and they open a CHINS case on you, you have no right to even ask about who's accusing you of what. And somehow the laws created this foot in the door where we skirt around your Sixth Amendment because we don't call it a criminal case. We call it a civil case. But never mind that what you do in a CHINS case can become criminal very quickly. I've seen it multiple times. And this is where I think the Constitution kind of fails. If there's a possibility of criminal charges, I feel that the Sixth Amendment should protect you, especially if you're dealing with a vital right such as losing the right to your child because DCS is going to take the child away from you. Uh, so this is kind of an area that the courts are okay with in the state of Indiana. They're okay with not allowing you to have the right to know who your accuser is. Now, this is also important because how many clients do we know that have multiple CPS cases open on them, one right after the other, and their excuse to us is what? If we have a problem with how many DCS cases, what do they tell us to do?
Well, they state that each case, every time that they get a call in to their 1-800 number or through their emails or
Whatever.
they have to investigate each claim.
Yep.
So you could have one DCS case open that's about to be closed and another one come right in covering the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
and
And
they'll come back in requesting the same thing.
And they will. And then another weird thing about it is I've seen this in practice where child has a bruise on them,
Mm-hmm.
and DCS comes out, checks the bruise, determines it's okay,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other party's not okay with that. We're assuming is the opposing party of the divorce or custody case or JP case, juvenile paternity case, and they report the bruise again.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of DCS going, hey, we've already checked out this bruise,
We just took pictures last week.
they'll come out again to my client and say, we've got to check the baby again because there's more evidence of a possible bruise.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing that they're checking that they already had, but for some reason, they feel the need to come out again. There was one case I had that there was a somebody called in on my client about something happening with her, and it would have helped her case to know who the accuser was because the second call corresponded with the first call, and it would have proved my client that she wasn't the person that DCS needed to go after. But because they already had an open case, they chose, DCS admitted in court that they chose to ignore the second claim from a different source because they checked it out supposedly. And when I pressed them in court, I was shut down.
Shut down.
Because I don't have a right to know who's accusing my client of what.
But, yep, that new information would have shown...
Exonerated. Yeah, it would have exonerated my clients. And the Chin's case would have closed down. They hold the identities of who's accusing you very tight to their chest because they say, we don't want to discourage people from reporting. Well, that's an inherent abuse that can be, or an inherent weakness in their logic that can be exploited and abused.
By angry baby daddies, angry baby mamas, even angry family members, or just anybody. I mean, you can offend somebody who used to be your friend, and they're like, you know what? Things that she was okay with, like, you having get-togethers every weekend at your house and drinking some, at your house. Now she's going to go, well, she's a bad mom, and calling DCS on you. Mm-hmm. Well, it can be abused in angry situations.
It's been abused on me. I will tell you this story. I tell my clients this story. We lived in base housing when I was in the Marine Corps. And there was this particular spot that a certain sergeant's wife liked to park in, okay? She liked this spot so much in base housing. And I knew she parked there every day. I also knew what side her daughter was, I believe, 6 at the time, her car seat. I knew what side the car seat was on. This daughter had a habit of flinging the door open. So leading up to this, I had CPS call on me like 3, 4, 5, 6 times. I can't even count. And she just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. And instead of getting angry with her, because at the time I was just a Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps, so I didn't know the ins and outs of DCS and how to fight them. I assumed, like everybody else, you had to let them in and talk. So that's what we did over and over again. I got sick and tired of it. So, like I said, back to the car. I knew where she parked every day when she got home to base housing. And I intentionally parked my car on the very line. I wasn't on the line, but right next to the white line. And the way everybody else was parked, I parked it intentionally on the side that her daughter was going to fling the door open. Okay? Mm-hmm. And I went ahead and parked it there, and I had a camcorder recording. So I knew what time she was going to get home because she, like clockwork, same time. And I waited for her daughter to fling that door open and hit my car. And as soon as she did, I went over to the sergeant's house and I said, sir, because I'm a sergeant, he's a Lance Corporal. He's not enlisted still, but I was being polite. I need to talk to you, Sergeant. I need your insurance information. Your daughter just dented my car. And the sergeant went out and looked, and he came back. He basically, like, how do you know it was my daughter? I said, I can prove it right now. I filmed it. And he looked at the film, and he told his wife to go get the insurance information because his daughter had damaged my vehicle and put a dent in it, a nice dent, and peeled the paint a bit. The damage ended up being about $900 from the insurance. But when the sergeant told his wife to go get, this is how I knew it was her reporting me. She pitched a fit. Like, she threw things at us, like the keys to the car so we could get the insurance information out of the car. She threw, I want to say, a cup out at, it was a plastic cup, it was going to hurt anybody. She pitched it out at us. She was pissed. But from that point on, she didn't call CPS again because she knew I was going to ensure that it wasn't just a one-sided game. Mm-hmm. I tell that story because that's how I handled it before I became an attorney. I know how to handle it now, but I was also a 20 some dumb person back then. And I just got tired of being harassed through this agency that is supposed to take care of uh, you and your children and make sure no harm's coming to your children. I'm going to move on from there. So, the right to know your accuser, your Sixth Amendment right in a criminal situation, even though the CPS call could turn into a criminal charge against you, you don't have the right to know your accuser.
You don't.
Even if you go to criminal court, they tend to hide that. Now, I'm sure there's ways to
And
get to
they're
that.
stripping your child from you.
They're
You're
stripping your
your child
child.
from you, and you still have no right to know who started it, who said what, and to face them. And because if you are getting your child taken away, you should know who said something. Because if that person is somebody who you know who was actually involved,
Mm-hmm.
or is actually the person who did that, you have no way to fight yourself.
You have no way.
You're
to fight.
fighting a battle that is, you have a sheet covering who's saying what.
And it goes back to there should be a CPS citizens' rights, and one of those rights is to know your accuser.
Also,
One of those, hold on. One of those rights is also, like I said before, you have the right to remain silent. You don't have to talk to CPS, even if they show up with cops on your door. That should be a given. You have the right not to have to take a drug test because it's an invasion of your personal space and something that, like I said before in the last video, that police don't even have the right to do.
correct. But also, CPS has this one hidden thing. You can call into CPS and you do not have to give your name at all. You do not have to give your phone number. You don't have to give your first or last name. You make a report and they follow up on it. I do not think that that is right either, because if you call the cops, okay,
What's the first thing they ask you?
they ask you for your first name
Last name.
and last name, and then
They start investigating whatever
but then
is
they're
out
going to
there.
follow up with you, and guess what else they're going to get? Driver's license.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to ask for a proof of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And that is for them to start investigating, right?
Yeah.
So with DCS, you don't even have to. I could call on you. You'd never know, because I don't have to give my name. And then they'll start digging into you just because I said something. And it's one-sided. So isn't that just a little bit of hearsay?
Well, no, it's not hearsay because we aren't in a court of law, but there you bring up a good point, and I'm glad you gave me this lean into it. If you have a Chin's case that goes to court, hearsay, which is something said outside of court to try to prove the fact of what they said, more or less. There's an official definition, but more or less that's what it is. If the entire court case, one thing that you have a right to in almost any other court case is the right not to have hearsay brought into the court. But with DCS,
That's all they use.
they use hearsay. You aren't allowed to challenge certain things DCS says. You aren't allowed to challenge things when DCS says, "Oh, I talked to so and so and they said this," and it has to do with the case. If I call hearsay, they're just going to say, "Well, this is family court. This is a Chin's case, so therefore, it's allowed."
Yeah, I mean, a therapist, or that also brings up another thing. A lot of the CASA worker is CASA through DCS.
Mm-hmm.
Therapists, but these are people who work with DCS.
They do work with DCS. You're right.
They do work with DCS a lot, and they form bonds with these DCS workers
because they see them every day.
Because they see them every day.
Yeah.
And what it is this counselor or this CASA worker will say, well, this person, the minor child said blah, 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 and yada, yada. Okay? And then you're like, okay, video? We don't video our sessions. Okay?
So you're not just asking for Okay, maybe hearsay should be allowed, but let's hear a recording of it. If you're going to interview the child, record the
Record
stuff
it, and
so we can analyze what the
it's
child
too
actually said.
traumatizing.
And no, but it isn't just that. If you go ahead and get, I've had this happen before. I have a DCS caseworker show up to court, and she says, "This is what the child said." Well, at the time, unbeknownst to the caseworker, I had recorded on audio what the child had said. And what the DCS caseworker had reported to the court was close to what the child said, but not quite. And when I say not quite, it was significant enough that changed the wording, the context of what the child said.
Mm-hmm. You take out just a couple of words. That's
couple
what they
words,
do.
yeah. So this caseworker is paraphrasing what the child said in court, and then when I whip out the recording of what actually the child said, the caseworker knew they were in trouble. Mm-hmm. Okay, but they had changed it just perfectly to say, yeah, that could have been what the child said, but it wasn't really what the child said. And when you use tone and inflection, but that's the problem is DCS will come interview your child in private. They say, well, we need the parent out of the room, so we make sure there's no, but they won't record the session either. Nope. So we have trouble with that. But hearsay should not be allowed in any courtroom except when there's a hearsay exception. And attorneys know what these hearsay exceptions are, but it's allowed to fly in Chin's cases.
I do believe if our government wanted to move in the right direction in regards to Chin's cases, all contact with that minor child, with therapists, CASA worker, everything should be recorded, because then the judge can say, okay, you want to say that that's not what the child said, all right? And then the judge be able to, if he wants to, pull up that footage and see. Mm-hmm. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be access for attorneys or the parents. Somebody should be able to access those videos, mm-hmm. or even attorneys or whatever, to see if what is being said by these therapists, CASA workers, case managers, blah, 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 that they are not misconstruing it or lying just because a parent is an aggressive parent. You know, if mm-hmm. you're taking my child, I'm going to be on your butt.
You intend to be aggressive.
Yeah, you tend to be aggressive.
If you're a good parent,
yeah,
or even if you're a mediocre parent,
you're going to be aggressive.
Okay? You're going to be a little upset and aggressive, mm-hmm. and instead of saying, "Oh, I understand why you're a little upset," they just say, "Well, that's why you're a bad parent. And we're keeping the child mm-hmm. from you."
And then they try to make it look like, well, you're not being a very good parent because you're not following the things that we want you to do. Okay, when did CPS become the
arbiters?
Yeah. Of everything. When did they become the know-all of how to raise a child? I have asked several CASA workers,
I find
several DCS workers, and half the time they don't have their own kids.
Oh,
That
is exactly what I was going to say.
And I'm like, you want to tell me how to raise a child?
No, I'm not saying that you can't go to college and get trained for it. Okay,
you can't.
But a lot of the caseworkers, I don't know. I don't know.
There's a difference between training and hands-on.
Exactly.
If you don't have that hands-on experience, then them sending you out to all of these places, yeah, some of them might help, and some of them, I would say, even me as a person who is, I don't have DC, I would say family classes or therapy as a group with your child mm-hmm. or whatever is good. But when you start acting like you know what's best for that minor child, you don't know that child. You just came and talked to him for 30 minutes. Now you think you know that child and what's best for that child. No.
Here's what I've also seen during DCS cases. In fact, I have one client right now that is going on. He has said that I could share this as long as I don't identify him. But he has a case where DCS has allowed, or they turned a blind eye to, or they did it themselves, a signature on a piece of paper saying he releases his rights to the child. being the non-custodial parent, and he looked at the signature. He looked at me when we had our conversation. He said, "I never signed that. I would have never signed that." But somehow, DCS didn't check up to make sure he signed it. Didn't get confirmation that he signed it. They took the paper. I don't know if DCS did it fraudulently. I'm not saying they did, but I am saying they didn't do the due process of making sure that father of the child.
It should be notarized.
It should be notarized.
Because if you're giving up,
yeah,
I mean, you have to notarize for a will.
You do.
You have to notarize for a lot of things.
You don't have to notarize for a will. I know we do that in our office, but because I like
it sticks.
Yeah, it sticks. It's really good at sticking.
And it knows that it shows that you are not being intimidated. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're giving up a child, the key thing is to make sure you're not being intimidated, right?
Mm-hmm. But here's the thing: if I would have brought that into court, a signature page from some person that says I give up the rights to my child, or I would have done that.
I want to hear it in person.
Well, I do too.
As a judge, if I were.
Because I think it was allowed by the court because DCS brought the information into the court. But because DCS is
DCS above.
I know, above normal people.
That they don't lie.
Yeah, that they don't lie, that they don't try to be deceitful. So we're going to go into something else with DCS, and they're sneaky about this shit.
Very sneaky.
So they take your child from you, and they're in a hurry about everything because the pressures that are put on them, whether it be because of the law, the way the law is written, or whatever, they take your child from you. And when do they schedule the hearing, usually? For the first hearing you have after your child's taken away.
Okay, so are we starting like with most of our clients?
Most
of our clients will get their child taken away from them. They'll come knocking. 2 a.m. We're taking the kids. That's a lot of hours. It's not during the day. It's not during like...
No, it's not necessarily 2 a.m. But what it is, I find
late.
funny is, it's after the courts have closed, so there's no way to challenge it.
After attorneys' offices have all closed.
All closed. So I've had this happen at least 3 times, okay? I'll get a call in my office because I take nighttime hours and I also do Saturdays and occasionally Sundays if I'm done with church. But I will get a call or an email sent to me that says I need to talk to an attorney immediately. I have a case Monday morning. I have to attend the hearing Monday morning. I need an attorney for it.
And this is the one they're trying to say, this is why the child needs to be taken. And a lot of parents are having to go to court without an attorney, without anything, knowing their rights, knowing what information DCS needs to show. Mm-hmm. Okay, to prove that the child didn't need to be taken away. And
but what do they do? What do they do? When does DCS take that child on a Friday and schedule the hearing on the Monday? When's the child taken on that Friday?
Late at night.
Late at night.
After the courts are closed?
4 or 5 p.m. The courts close at 4 around here. 4 or 5 p.m. And then they schedule that hearing for Monday, maybe Tuesday.
If you're lucky Tuesday.
If you're lucky Tuesday. And here's the worst part about it. So you have no attorney's offices that are open that late, with the exception of me occasionally.
And some on the weekends not open.
Not open all weekend. And they expect you to show up 9 a.m. or even 1 p.m. on a Monday to have a preliminary hearing as to why DCS took your child. Mm-hmm. No time to hire an attorney. No time to think about it, that first hearing. And then they ask you questions of whether you... the court asks you questions as to whether you deny the claims or you accept the claims.
And since you have not had time to prepare for this hearing, you're traumatized because your child's been taken, right? Mm-hmm. 1. 2, you have no time to seek legal counsel. Mm-hmm. So, and 3, you're in front of the courts with DCS over there. So that right there, in and of itself, with all 3 of those combined, I would be frazzled. Mm-hmm. Me personally, I would not know what to do. I would just be standing there thinking, how can I prove myself when I haven't had the time? And then you go rip my child away, and now she's with you, and I can't know what's been being said, and with that time, they've had time to talk to her, take her to a kid, to have a what's it called?
Forensic
interview. They've had all that time to do that. And they'll do it on the weekend.
They'll arrange everything.
They'll arrange everything on the weekend.
Just so they have the evidence
just
on
so
Monday
they have
morning.
it. Mm-hmm. Yet you have not had any time to properly prepare, defend yourself, which is your
right.
Your
it's
right.
your right.
It's your right to defend yourself.
You're right. You have a right to have an attorney there, and they'll run without an attorney, and then they'll appoint you one if you can't afford one at the hearing where they've already done stuff.
Where they've already done stuff, but also, then that's longer that your child isn't with you.
Exactly.
That is longer. And then they want to go, well, we're going to give you supervised visitations. Okay. So at that supervised visitations, and then yet nothing is recorded.
Oh, yeah.
Hearsay.
That's another thing is, if you get to the point where you get supervised visits, and they send you to an agency, okay?
It is through DCS.
It's hired by DCS, okay?
Through DCS.
So anything that happens in that supervised visit
will be used against you.
Canon will be used against you, but not just that. The person supervising is taking notes like crazy, okay? Now, I'm not saying they all do this, but this is what I've seen in the past. They're taking notes like crazy, and because they know who's paying the bill for them, which is DCS, the longer the case goes, the more incentive they have to make sure that they're reporting shit that they shouldn't be reporting. Because if it was just one time, one supervision, two supervisions, and done, they are not going to make money. Okay.
But what gets me is with these supervised visitations and a lot of...
Oh, they don't record it either.
They don't record it.
They don't record it. So, once again, we're back to that thing where we were talking about earlier. Child says something in a supervised visit, and you have this person taking notes that paraphrases it because they got to move quickly, and they either intentionally or unintentionally write down something that isn't quite what... But then DCS looks at it and says, why would you say that to the kid? And you're in trouble again. You're not complying with DCS. I've seen it. But
to go along with that, what I wanted to say is, with those visitations, okay, and they're getting paid, okay, you're visiting with your child, and let's just say your child gets taken away from you on that Friday. So you haven't seen your minor child. You haven't seen him for Saturday, Sunday, and this child probably roughly hasn't been out of your care
ever
for maybe a sleepover. Okay, so that's one night. So you're at Sunday, then Monday, and the judge is like, well, DCS has shown enough, just enough, to have your child taken away because you don't have the counsel and a way to defend yourself. So then days pass by to even maybe a week.
Oh.
But when you have that first visit or those repeated visits and you're letting the child pick what you want to do, they look at you and say, well, she's letting the minor child control each visit. If I only had 2 hours twice a week to visit with my child under supervised visitations, do you know what's going to happen?
What's that?
I'm going to let my child pick whatever the Holy Hannah for 2 hours we're going to do. If my child says, Mommy, can I do your hair and cut it? My child's going to do my hair and cut my hair. You know why? Because that is 2 hours that I only get twice a week with my child.
Give me 1 minute. I want to make sure I'm correct on this, so I am going to Google it. I don't know it off the top of my head. I would actually have to look. But I believe DCS, and tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, or I'll let you know in a future one. But I believe the standard for DCS is preponderance of the evidence, which isn't as high as the beyond a reasonable doubt. So they don't even have to prove that they took your kids from you to a standard of a trial. They just, I believe, and like I said, I could be wrong because I didn't prepare for this discussion when we started this video, but I believe it's preponderance of the evidence. And all that they have to prove. But regardless...
Because if you don't know about it and can't prepare, how are you going to have your evidence to counter?
And then they set a fact-finding hearing about 30 days out, okay?
And normally, honestly, to say, as we say, as a office manager of an attorney, a lot of these DCS cases, when fact-finding or other hearings are scheduled, they will schedule them without discussing it with the attorney for the mom, the attorney for the father, getting together and making sure that their schedule is open, because they'll schedule it within like 3 days to a week. And a lot of times
My schedule
our
right
schedules
now
are already
is
full a
full
month out.
a month out. And if I have a few openings, it happens sometimes, but it's rare.
Very rare.
So I have this DCS case. This is the reason why I don't like DCS. It's not that I can't influence it and get the case taken care of. It's the amount of headache that DCS puts on me, because I'm not equal in the courtroom to the DCS attorney. I'm not.
Nope.
The DCS attorney basically controls the courtroom.
Mm-hmm. And when things are being scheduled, blah, 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 blah. It is all that. But then also, when you try to get things rescheduled or to get certain things done in the courtroom, it's like the judges for these JC cases, Chin's cases, it's JC for Chin's cases or DCS cases. It's JC in Indiana. So when they get those and you put in your motion, you put in your order, blah, 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 for a continuance.
Is it JC?
Yes.
I know it's Chin's case, but I don't.
It's JC.
Is
JP is juvenile.
I know what JP is, but for Indiana, in the cause number, it says JC.
It says
okay,
JC.
I'm going to trust you on that, because I don't pay attention to cause numbers all the time.
But it's through certain judges. Like here in Muncie, Indiana, it is done, all JC cases, Chin's cases are done at the YOC. And the judges are so, they want that time, Boom, you have so many days for the first hearing. You have so many days for the fact finding.
Well, some of that is according to statute.
Statutes.
There is statute that says you have to do this hearing within X number of days unless you get permission from this, and you have to get permission from all parties to extend it beyond.
Well, it's not mainly just all. It is all parties, but it is key that our client needs to know that if they ask for a continuance, that we are stepping outside of that statute. Okay? Mm-hmm. And a lot of our clients go, "Ooh, I don't want to step outside that." But the thing is in some cases you need to, because we have to request a lot of documentations, discovery from DCS. I mean, to get everything, we need that additional 30 days.
It is, and that's not
to get it.
The law says you have to schedule it within so many days. Okay,
doesn't give you.
But most discovery requests take 30 days. So you're headed into a fact-finding hearing
within 30 days.
Within 30 days of the kids being taken away from you, taken away from you. You, as an attorney, I have very little time to react.
We would have to be on your case. That you'd have to
hire us from go.
From that weekend that they were taken. We would need to be able to file, send out our discovery, everything like that, and it'd be put into the case on Monday, just to have it maybe, if we're lucky, the day before the fact finding.
Now there is ways to get more time, but the longer you take, the longer your kid's going to be away from you without even having a hearing, without even getting a chance to get in there and have a hearing. And that's what I call pretty messed up. We are getting to about the halfway mark, so we're going to shift a little bit. We are going to talk about one other thing that DCS does that is really jacked up
today. Because I do know that in following DCS videos
that we do,
I am going to touch on the lack of caring the ombudsman, which is...
Ombudsman. It's a weird word.
It's a weird word, but it's where you make complaints in regards to your DCS case, your case manager, your everything, blah, blah, blah. You make your complaints to them. And their lack of correspondence when an attorney's office who has done everything, they have a thing. If you want to make a complaint about a case manager.
And most clients, or most people out there don't know, you can actually report DCS. And I'll get to what you're saying, but I got something to say on that.
So to get a case manager to put in a complaint, to do anything with DCS, you have to put in motions for the court first. So we can put in those motions, which we have on several DCS cases, put in those motions for a change of case manager, for a change of venue of where the DCS case is out of. So if it's in Delaware County, which is Muncie, and we're like, no, we want it moved to, you know, Hamilton County, which is far away. You have to put all those requests into the courts before you can contact the ombudsman. And then even after you contact the ombudsman, they're still saying, well, you need to handle this through the courts before you come to us.
You know who
It's lack of initiative to the ombudsman doing their research, which they are supposed to be the person making sure every DCS worker, every DCS case is being handled ethically
and correctly.
And to make sure that you are given your rights, which DCS has a procedure. And if they don't do one of those procedural things and you take it to the ombudsman, they'll be like, well, did you take it to your DCS worker? That's your job. You're supposed to be in charge of them. You supervise them.
Well, this is what I do tell people is because the person you're talking about works for DCS, I tell them to contact their state senator or their U.S. senator or their U.S. representative and bombard the office, the elected person's office, if DCS is stepping out of line. Because here's the thing. If enough people call up their senator and say, hey, this is jacked up, this is what DCS is allowed to do, it's going to get the ear.
After
eventually.
So many complaints,
after
to
so
those
many
people.
It may not happen the first time you want it.
No.
Okay, so let's move on a little bit. There was one other thing I do want to talk about, and then we're going to talk about, we'll get to the next subject. One thing that DCS likes to do, and some of it's because of just employment issues or whatever, they like to change out caseworkers on a case. And when that happens, and I question a caseworker, well, I wasn't there for that part of it, so I don't know. It's like, okay, I know
I didn't know who they never told me that who the previous person was.
Yeah, and they use it as an excuse of, well, since I didn't know, therefore I don't have to answer for the agency.
Yes.
So I want to let people know that. We're going to move on now. We're going to move past DCS at this point. We're going to come back and have more on DCS later.
I think you could talk forever about
You
DCS.
can talk forever, but we're getting a little lengthy here, and I want to make sure we get in another subject. Let's talk about the child support system and custody. Okay.
I'm very opinionated on that.
Child support is one thing that is really messed up. Yes, as a father or as a mother, you should support your children. But the system incentivizes the basically keeping both parties barely surviving. So I say it like this. As an attorney, I make decent money. My ex-wife knows last time we went to court, I showed her my balance sheet. And I say this, I'm really timid to go after extra money because if I make extra money to better myself, even though I'm paying good child support to my ex-wife, if I go and make more money and take on more clients, which I could do, it would be long hours, which is one reason why I don't do it. But another reason why I don't do it is it's not incentivized for me to do. I want to better myself, but the moment I start making good money, I get taken back to court to increase my child support. And like I said, I pay my child support. I'm current with my child support. But the fact of the matter is this. I don't want to go out and get X number of clients coming through the door. Because if I make too much money, I am going to be taken back. I'm going to be taken back for more child support.
And it's a headache.
It's a headache.
It's not worth the extra money to make on top of it for us to have to go back to court, all for child support. And it, to me...
So let's play another scenario. There's an exception in the child support rules in Indiana that says if, I'm not quoting this 100%, but basically it says something to the effect that if overtime is a regular thing,
It's
it
counted.
should be included in the child support calculation. Now, this is messed up.
That's where it's all messed up.
It is messed up.
It's already messed up as it is because it's like a lot of things out there, and they go by your pre-taxed earnings, pre-taxed. So you don't even bring that home. You bring home considerably less than that, and so your money. You got your taxes coming out. Then you're gonna have your child support coming out at $125 every week. So that's $250 taken off what after taxes. I mean, that's so a $650 check is now
$300, something like that.
it's considerably less.
But how it should happen is this, okay? In Indiana, you have to have a 20% increase before you can take it back. But the legislature, when they wrote the child support rules in Indiana, really jacked it up because they should be looking at the 40-hour work week, which everybody's required. Anything that you make above and beyond the 40-hour work
is you just trying to survive.
Is you trying to make extra money for your family that you have now because you may have extra kids, new kids with your current family, and you're paying child support. And the moment you start making regular overtime, I've seen clients say, "I don't want the overtime because all I'm going to do is it's going to
go bye.
It's going to go bye because she's going to take me back.
Taxes are going to be taken out of it, and then child support after that. So
and
$50 worth of overtime. Let's just say $50 worth of overtime.
$50 is cheap, but let's just
say $50 worth of overtime a week. Okay, just so this father can take himself out to dinner or go do something for himself because he's barely making it as it is. Then she goes back for more child support because he's making more. He's doing overtime. 30 of that roughly is going to go to child support again since it's being raised. And then you still have taxes taken out of it. So it's just not fair.
It's not fair. It should be one standard. If I work 40 hours, whatever I work, the 40 hours is all that's calculated into child support when it comes to my actual paid job. Okay? Anything I make above that overtime, because here's the thing, what if I lose the overtime because the company closes down? And even if I were to file that petition, they can backdate it, okay? That can happen. But I've seen some requests for child support take 6 months to get in there. And the entire time the guy has to keep up on the child support that includes the overtime. And then even if they backdate it, he has all this extra money that he shouldn't have paid. Okay? He gets credit for it, but he should have never paid it in the first place.
Correct.
It takes a while to get back into court. It needs to be more flexible than that.
It does.
Okay?
It really does. And honestly, I think a lot of it could actually just be handled outside of court by putting in child support worksheets, taking, your paycheck stubs, presenting them with the...
in some cases, you can do that.
In some cases, you can.
But when the parties, one
Disagree.
party is hostile against the other, it's not going to fly. You have to have a hearing, which means you got to wait for that hearing. Sometimes 30, sometimes 45 days before you get it. And if somebody asks for discovery, say they hire an attorney and discovery's asked for, that puts another 30 days on top of that. You're just racking up days where you're just paying out. But then also,
it's not just racking up that. You're racking up attorney's fees.
You are.
You're racking, because if we have to do discovery, that is time, unless you're paying a flat fee. When you do that discovery, him emailing you, that's money he's making. When you email him back that discovery, just him looking at it, that's money you owe. And then if he has to correct anything or change anything because he doesn't want you to
look bad,
that's additional time. I mean, sometimes, depending on the length of discovery, we've had discovery that had 63, 64 questions. 60 questions.
And we're dealing with child support and parenting time. And we have 60 questions that we have to answer for the opposing side because they want to dig in to see if they can find anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of dealing with the petition. And I'm not saying it's attorney doing the wrong thing, because I do it too. But the point is, that should not preclude you from getting that child support reduced as quickly as possible.
Nope. It should.
Okay? So, there's something that you and I talked about. I've adopted your oldest daughter.
Yes.
She is now my child. Your son's biological father has passed away, so when it becomes time for him to choose, when he's able to make that decision, I plan on adopting him too. But let's just say I've already adopted him.
Mm-hmm.
If I get divorced from you tomorrow, we're gonna live relatively close to each other,
Yes.
because we got 2 kids.
Well, no, even if we didn't, in my mind, in my mindset, because I don't care what you've done to me. I don't care if you're mad at me for anything that I've done in our marriage and the reason we got divorced. My key thing is, what do my kids want?
Oh, not just one.
What
because
do they need?
What do they need? What's
Yeah,
best
it's
for
both.
them?
And what's best for them is to have both of us in their lives equally.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter if you lived in Muncie and I lived in Anderson or vice versa, if you wanted to, and you would have to take her to school, you could have her 50-50. 50-50.
Why do you think 50-50 with me is a good thing?
Because fathers are a key and essential role in a minor child's life. Because you can teach her and discipline her and grow her in ways that I can't, because I'm not a male. I'm not that male role model.
Mm-hmm.
And what your male role model is to show her what kind of man she wants in her future.
Mm-hmm.
If she doesn't have that on a constant, she's going to see other men on a constant, if you're not. And that might skew her picture of what she should want from a husband, from a boyfriend, from anything. Also, coming from a divorced family and barely, a lot seeing my father, I yearned for that male role model. And so I did not run to the appropriate men in my life to fill that void. And I was trying to fill that void. And if I would have had that male role model, it would have shown me that those guys that I was going after, they weren't right.
Well, this isn't just your daughter either. It's your son also.
I do not want a crybaby.
I do not want to cry baby.
I do
either.
not want I'm going to say it, I don't want a snowflake. I don't want a male who is going to go crying, need a safe room. I want him to be tough. I want him to respect women. I want him to be genuinely a Prince Charming. Because with that, it shows honor, that he has honor, respect of women, respect of their position, respect of even men. And I want him to have that self-respect, and you can't have it.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit more. I'm a former Marine, so I have a strict understanding of discipline. I also got myself through law school. Got myself through my undergrad with children. Yeah, I did have a spouse at the time who assisted me with it, and I'm going to give her credit where credit's due. My ex-wife did help me get through law school and take care of our 7 children that we had. So I have that. Our marriage didn't work out, so it is what it is. But a lot of the struggles I see with my children is things that should have been taken care of when they were young. And teaching, I know they talk about male masculinity being toxic.
Masculinity is not toxic.
It's not toxic.
It is not toxic at all, because, one, I have sat and watched male adults, whine over the smallest things. Yet I have seen my husband stand firm and protect in those same situations. And I would not have been able to have handled those situations myself if you hadn't have stood in front of me or stood beside me or stood behind me and go, I got you.
Well, let's talk about something. Zayden is 6 years old, right?
Yes.
He just turned 6 in December, right?
Yes.
Okay. What do I tell him he is?
He is the man of the house when you are not
When
there.
I'm not around.
Mhm.
And he backs me up.
He backs you up.
He backs me up. So if I hear a noise at night, I know he's 6, and some people may think this is crazy.
He wakes him up.
We have guns in our house. The first thing I do is go pull a gun if the noise is loud enough and I know it's weird. Say it's a breaking of a glass. I grab my gun first. The next thing I do, I go wake up my 6-year-old. Now, people are thinking, oh, he's only 6, he can't do it. No, he's got a loud mouth. Here's the thing. He's to go protect and watch over the 2 women of the house.
He doesn't take Zayden with him.
I don't take Zayden with me to go clear the house.
No.
But here's the thing. I make sure he knows that Mommy and Sissy need to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I expect of him. Okay? And teaching him how to do this now, because I'm going to become old and frail. And I won't be the one with the gun cleaning the house, making sure everything's good.
It'll be me.
It may be you. It may be you. But more than likely, it's going to be one of my boys.
Mm-hmm.
One of my boys that I have. I have 5 boys. And I want to teach them, when they have wives, get your butt up. Your wife heard a noise. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's probably imagining things. I'm not going to lie.
We do.
But get your butt up. Grab your gun. Go clear your house. Make sure nobody's intruding. There should be no reason somebody should be in your house. But I say all that to get back to the subject of custody. A woman could teach a little boy to do that. But it comes different from a man, because he pumps his chest out as a 6-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
He pumps his chest out. He stands tall when he knows that he's in charge. No, of course, my wife's really in charge. But he has something he can do, and it's going to keep him safe and quiet, watching over 2 people. Everybody's going to be grouped together. So I don't have people wandering through the house.
You know what he says?
What?
No. He will say, Mommy, I can't wait to have a wife to protect.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot wait to have kids to protect. And it makes me smile, because it's not showing a woman has a weakness. No, it is showing a woman her value. That is the key thing.
Yeah, you don't protect.
It is showing you don't protect a junky car.
You don't.
Something that you don't want. You protect what you find valuable. And what you find valuable are
the women in my life,
and
my sons.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But my sons need to become men someday. So it's lessons that I could teach them. If we were to get divorced tomorrow, we'd probably work it out pretty well.
50-50.
Now, before I say that, you've worked in my office long enough that I actually fear you a bit when it comes to a court hearing. I don't think you may have to hire an attorney to guide you on a few of the processes, but for the most part, and knowing me and how I operate in court.
Hey, and a lot of the attorneys around here know me, so I might get a discount. No, they'd just be like, I'll take it for free.
And they'll take it for free because it's going after me, right?
Yeah.
But even if they didn't, I kind of fear you in court, because you do a lot of the paperwork and the filing of the petition. Yeah, I give you guidance on it. But there's some petitions where I'm like, oh, we filed that?
Yeah, we did.
That was an awesome petition.
Thank you.
And I'm surprised by it, because it's what I wanted, but I didn't have to tell you. So, but if we were to get divorced,
You know, he I would not need assistance, but he doesn't fear that he wouldn't get what he should have, especially with custody, child support, and all that. I have already told him at this point, I don't need your child support. I don't need that stuff. And because, 1, 50-50 custody. 2, that money should be going towards the kids, not me. And if we have 50-50 custody, my living expenditures aren't going to be sky high.
Here's the thing also.
And also, I don't need. I'm a very independent woman. You know that.
But
I was before I married you.
yes, but
And
who's the head of the household?
you are.
I'm the head. Why am I the head of the household?
There is a logical truth, but the honest to God truth for me is I don't want to be in charge. I really
Okay, but let's put it into practice when it comes to me. 90% of the time, when a decision has to be made,
it falls on you because
okay, it falls on me. But 90% of the time, do I really care
no,
what the decision is?
no,
Okay, right?
right.
It does fall on me, and I get your opinion before I make the decision. But most of the time, I'm like, help me
I
make
really
the
don't
decision.
care.
I don't care.
It's
And that's
true.
the thing. But there is that 10%. And when I stand up for that 10%, she knows I'm not playing.
Mm-hmm.
Because she knows I wouldn't be standing up unless I had some logic behind it. Okay? Right or wrong?
Right.
Okay. So I'm not putting words in your mouth, am I?
No.
Okay. So here's another thing. I I have an ex-wife who I co-parent a son with, and when we first got divorced, we were at each other's throats. And one thing about it was I got tired of the nitpicking and stuff like that. And I wasn't exactly the best person. I was angry over a lot of things. She was angry over a lot of things. And we just went at each other.
And it wasn't healthy.
It was not healthy at all.
For the kids.
Yeah.
Things like that, relationships like that, it really irks me because, again, coming from divorced parents, I went through that. Nitpicking on both sides. And the whole time, neither one of my parents understood that we can hear you. We can see you.
And you still love both parents,
I
right?
still love both parents.
And you don't understand why
they
they're
think
treating...
we don't understand. But even at the age of 8, I knew. I knew the things you were saying about Dad. I knew the things Dad was saying about Mom. I understood everything that you were saying. And not once was it, well, what do they want? It was never, what did they need? What would be good for them, Would it be good, to let my dad have me the whole summer instead of half the summer because my mom got me the rest of the time? It wasn't what would be good for her to spend additional time with her dad because she needed that. But hindsight's always 2020.
Well, here's what I was going to say. We co-parent a child together. We weren't always good at it. We were at each other's throats for the first year and a half after we got divorced. And even after we had gotten remarried, we rubbed each other the wrong way. I can honestly say now we co-parent pretty well together. There is some miscommunication occasionally where I say something that she doesn't understand, or she says something and I flip out instead of finding out what she actually meant by it. But 99% of the time, we're co-parenting. And this goes back to you. If I were to get a divorce from you, the child support thing isn't an issue. And I'm going to say this, and correct me if I'm wrong. It's not an issue because if you were to ask me for money,
I know for the kids. I know you'd do it.
If you gave me a logical reason to do something for the kids, if I can make it happen, I'm going to make it happen. Okay? But a lot of men don't do that with custody.
No.
And child support is necessary if you aren't willing to do what you're supposed to do. And when it comes to my ex-wife, I think she's at the point right now, I can't speak for her, but I get the feeling she's at the point where she knows that if she were to ask me something for our son, okay,
she'd give it.
I would do everything I can to either split the cost with her or I might cover it completely if she would just ask. And ask respectfully. Not she doesn't have to bow down to me. She doesn't have to do anything. All she has to say, hey Roland, I was thinking about this. What do you think about it? And we talk about it and say, okay, how much does it cost? Okay, well, I can do this, I can do that. I can have it done by this time. Give me this amount of time. I'll make sure you have the money. And I'm okay with that. But when we first got divorced, it was always about dragging each other back to court.
But it was also, I will say this much, a lot of child support issues coincide with the custody issues
It does.
and the parenting time issues because what the custodial parent doesn't sometimes see that they're doing, or they see it and they still do it, is this they will take that child like a little carrot in front of a horse and say, I want more money. Oh no, you're not going to give it to me? Oh, carrot gone.
Now, I will be honest, my ex-wife was like that at the beginning, and she probably had good reason because I was truly an asshole to her because of everything that went down between us. But she doesn't do that anymore, and I have a lot of respect for her, even though I don't like the guy. Uh, her new husband, I personally don't like him, okay? I'm not going to lie. But he is a good force for my son in his life. He does good by my son, and even though I dislike him for reasons other than my son, he is a good influence on my son.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to give him respect for that.
Mm-hmm.
My ex-wife is a very good influence on my son. She does baby him sometimes, beyond what I want her to.
I baby my youngest.
But yes, you do too.
It's a thing.
It's a mother
I will
thing.
tell you this much: the firstborn, what they say, is the practice run for the next one in line, and then the next one in line is still practice till we get that perfection.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just kidding.
The son that we co-parent together is our baby.
Mm-hmm.
He is our youngest child. He is not my youngest child because, like I said, I've adopted your daughter and she's actually younger than him, but he's my youngest biological child. I don't see a difference between my biological and adopted children, but he's caused a bit of stress on us because we're trying to prepare him to become an adult because he's going to be turning. He's not there yet. He is a teenager, but he's not an old teenager.
No.
But he has to learn to function on his own. And he's been so used to being taken care of by myself and my ex-wife when we were together, and even now that he has two families, he has everything made for him.
And I see that. I've seen it since we've been married, and that is why
he's a good
recently
kid.
We have been changing
Strategy
strategy for
discipline.
Zayden, my son.
Yeah.
Because I am like, oh no. It's like seeing a future. If I continue on the path that I am of spoiling him,
yeah,
I will have that.
Well, I want to go back to DCS real quick. We're going to get off of here. We're already over an hour at this point, so I don't want to go on much longer. There is one other sneaky little thing that DCS did, and while we were talking, I was thinking about this because what was going on with Izzy. I practice in multiple counties in Indiana, and I live in one of the counties that I practice. My office is in another county that I practice in. And I have multiple DCS cases for clients in these counties, in each of these counties. And one of the counties tried to do something sneaky with my daughter. Something happened with my daughter outside of our family. Mm-hmm. And it was reported to our counselor. Our family had nothing to do with it, but it was a report that had to be made. So they made the report. Mm-hmm. Well, at the time the report was made, I was in a very heated battle with DCS for a client. Very heated. In fact, it was so heated that it didn't just have one 8-hour hearing. It had multiple 8-hour hearings. So days, we're debating stuff in the courtroom. And I don't know if they did this to try to
get information on
information or put me in a compromised position. But the report gets reported to DCS as soon as
a county way far
away. It was far away.
Southern Indiana, 2 hours away. 2 hours.
That's
away.
where this incident happened, and it got reported. And the county that my daughter's school is in. They tried to send somebody over to the school to interview my daughter.
Behind our backs.
And
they had already told DCS that we have several cases in Madison County, several cases in Delaware County. We told supervisors, you are not allowed to touch this case. Look at it. No.
And here's the thing. I'm not opposed to DCS coming in and checking on me. That's not what I'm saying. But doing it in a county that I have no association with, that as soon as my name comes across your desk, you don't know who I am right away. Okay? So they tried to get to the school to interview my daughter. And this is completely inappropriate. There's a conflict of interest. You are not to be investigating me when I am in a heated battle with you. Go find a county. Go find Marion County, which is Indianapolis. Go up to Allen County, which I have some cases up there. I have no Chins cases up there. Go to Allen County. Have Allen County come down, which is Fort Wayne. Come down and do these things. But don't send a county that I'm in a heated battle with.
That almost every single one of the DCS workers in that county
No.
are in our cases.
There's no reason why DCS should be even coming near me from those counties.
But haven't we told you? Let's tell them the outcome of that.
Oh, well, I want to be careful here because I don't want to give too much information away. So be careful as you speak about it. Okay? What were you going to say, though?
Nothing.
It's hitting too close to home, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I knew that. So I want to make sure that during these things we don't give client information.
No, I wasn't going to give client information. It's literally nothing. Nothing has been done.
Yeah, nothing has been done?
Nothing has been done.
Well, we did have a caseworker from one of the southern Indiana counties come up. She had to drive a few hours to get to us to clean out this case.
But it's not.
We were never the offenders. We weren't even considered the offenders. But the point is, the DCS that I am in the heat of battle with should not be investigating me.
No.
It should be, there's so many other counties around here that I don't have DCS cases in. So many other counties that I don't have DCS. Those are the ones that should have came and checked out what was going on in our house.
Did you tell them about how once we found out, we called the DCS?
Oh, yeah. When I found out that DCS was thinking about sending over, I called the principal of the school and I said, hey, I want you to understand something. I explained the situation to him. I told him, listen, I'm in a heated battle with these people. I don't care what other county, but I gave him a list of counties. If DCS from these counties show up,
or a representative
for those counties show up at the school and try to interview my daughter, I'm not going to just sit around and take it. I said, you do not allow them to come interview. You tell them to go get another caseworker. And fortunately for me, the principal of the school said, I understand what you're saying. I'll take care of it, Mr. Wilson. I understand why you don't want this to happen. And I explained to him, I said, I have no problem with DCS interviewing my daughter. I have a problem with my DCS interviewing my daughter
from a county
that I'm in a heated battle with.
And that's the thing. That right there, what happened.
That shows unprofessionalism.
Shows unprofessionalism and shows deviousness of DCS.
Yes.
That they hear, ooh, a case involving an attorney who's on a bunch of other cases who are battling with us in court.
Instead of going, whoa, I might have a conflict here.
It is a conflict.
No, I know it is, but they didn't even say, whoa. They immediately said, go send somebody over to school.
Yep.
That's jacked up.
It is.
Fortunately for me, I got to the school, or I had a relative get to the school to pick up my daughter for the day. I thought it was your mom that day.
No,
it was you. We picked up our children, and they actually missed school for a day or two. 2 days, until I made sure
because
DCS...
they were hounding us.
They were hounding us, saying that we got to investigate this claim.
I need to talk to your kid. No, you don't.
I said, no, you don't. Now,
because that one county person had already talked to her.
I did. But here's another thing. I did let DCS come out to talk to her.
From
another county. I did, because I knew I wasn't trying to skirt the issue. No. Something serious had happened, and I wasn't going to just... I wanted it to be investigated myself to find out where it went from there. But the point I'm trying to make is that there's a way to go about doing things. This is just another example of how DCS likes to choose their own rules and do whatever the hell they want to do. We're going to leave it at that. We haven't gotten into everything we wanted today, but we are running an hour and 10 minutes at this point. And like I said, there is so much deviousness when it comes to DCS that if good people would just get in the agency rather than people who have worked years.
Now, we're not knocking DCS. There are good caseworkers, and there are kids
we
out
talked
there
about that.
who need it.
You're right.
But it's the ones that get the pumped up chest, like, I got power. And then if a parent goes the wrong way or sounds aggressive whenever you come accusing them of doing that, yeah, if you accuse me of doing something I'm not doing, especially something that is so bad that DCS has to come to my house, yeah, I'm going to be a little bit upset. And DCS workers will hold that against that parent and then try to find something just to keep that kid.
Before we go, there was something else I want to say. There was this caseworker who I had used previously to get custody. Legitimately, the person who we got custody from, he was not good for the kids. The stuff he was doing to these children was horrendous, okay? And we got custody, and we used DCS to get that custody in the middle of a heated divorce. It was very effective. Well, he calls me up for another client, says, I got to talk to your other client. And when I said, no, I don't think I'm going to tell you where my client is or where the child is at. I have to keep that private. He says, so you just used me to get custody in one thing, but you aren't willing to help me? I said, yeah, I'm doing what's best for my client. I'm not doing
the same client for both?
No, it was two different clients.
Then, yeah, that's
but here's the thing.
Two separate things.
It is two separate things. I'm not here to placate. Yes, I'm willing to use DCS to do what I need them to do when I need them to do it. And I'm going to control that situation as much as I'm allowed to, as much as I can.
Because sometimes DCS
is a good
force, but also they can get into that bad things and the nitty gritty that we can't get into of the opposing party.
I can't, if I know something's going wrong with a kid and I know this kid is suffering, I know this kid is upset, and he just keeps being sent over to this other parent's house to be, I don't want to say tortured, but be abused and neglected. I cannot walk over to the opposing party's house and say, let me see what's going on. Okay?
Because sometimes it takes like a month to 45 days to get a gal
to
into a case or to, get anything done.
I know.
I mean, but at DCS, they can get that kid into a counselor within a week.
Within a week. And this is where you have to strategically use CPS or DCS.
For what they're meant for.
For what they're meant for is making sure a child is okay. Not for a custody battle just because you want to win the custody battle. And when I see legitimate abuse, I will tell my client, this is the pros and cons of getting DCS involved, but in this case, I really think you should get DCS involved. Number one, you're clean. I know you're clean. Number two, they're going to be able to do an investigation that I can't.
That's one of the key things we will do if we have a client who we want to get DCS involved to help with our case. We will drug test. Because we need to make sure you're not lying.
Yeah, I will ask. I've asked my client before, hey, if you want me to represent you, I need a drug test from you. And the reason being is because I want to make sure when I walk into DCS or into a courtroom that if the other side says she's doing drugs or he's doing drugs too, I can say, I can defend that. I know they are. Even though I can't use the drug test I took, I know for a fact in my head that I know my client is clean. Now, I know there's ways to get around drug tests. I know there is. But I have at least a peace of mind knowing that more than likely my client is clean and we're going after the other side because of it. Like I said, we're gonna cut off here. There's more to say about this. We're going to review this video once we post it, before we post it actually, and we're going to, because there's a few topics that we kind of skirted over that need to be addressed. Yeah. So we're going to find out what those issues are, and we're going to come back and talk about it more. Another thing that's coming up is abuse between people in a relationship and how much that abuse can be contained in a divorce. And when I say contained, I mean co-abuse, which we talked about before. A lot of the cases where abuse is happening is co-abuse. It's simultaneous abuse among both parties. And whether that be physical, emotional, mental, whatever, the abuse is happening by both parties. And if we could just get them separated, this is what divorce is for. Divorce is to separate two people who are toxic for each other. That's what divorce is supposed to do. You don't need to stay in a relationship that's toxic. You don't. But you don't just run to divorce the moment shit goes down. Okay? Because you swore to honor, love, and cherish however your vows went until death do you part. Fill in the blanks until death do you part. And some sickness comes from old age where they do get violent. Are you just going to leave that person after being with them for 50 years and all of a sudden you want a divorce because they're mental health? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I don't know. I can't answer that question, but we're going to give some examples. We're going to talk about co-abuse. We're going to talk about how to use the PO, which is still coming up. I know I mentioned it last time.
We're also going to bring in examples of if you want to start a PO, we're going to put them on the screen. If you want to start a PO and you don't have an attorney, you have all of your evidence, it's good evidence, and you think you can handle it together, we're going to show you the paperwork, what it looks like. You can get it online. You can get it through the courts, going to the courts directly, or sometimes occasionally, if you find the right one, you can get it and get help filling it out from an attorney's office at little to no cost, kind of like a consultation.
Yeah.
But
you also have victim's advocate.
Yeah.
Victim's advocate is you have to get an appointment with them, at least here in the county we work in, but they're very good at what they do. You need to talk to them about it, but you also have to understand what your evidence is worth, and that's where talking to an attorney will get the job done. Because I've had clients walk into my office and say, I want a PO against him or her, and I'm like, let me see your evidence, and they show it to me, and I'm like, this is not enough.
That's not enough.
I mean, I'll take your money if you want me to go to court, but I'm telling you now, you're going to lose.
You're
going to pay me to walk into court and lose for you. So I need to see your evidence. The evidence, a trained attorney can tell you what the hell you need to do.
And that evidence goes along with, the witnesses and everything we've been talking
witnesses, about. That's another thing. We need to get to how to prep a witness.
We will get to that video on how to prep a witness either before this video that we're talking about with toxic relationship, divorce, everything like that. We might get into the witness and how to prep a witness, because if all of your stuff, all of your evidence in a PO or a divorce is a witness, you need to learn how to prep them, how to talk to them if you are going to go in unrepresented.
Yeah. And like I said before, everything I say on here, yes, I am an attorney. I do practice law here in the state of Indiana. But don't just take what I say. Research. Go consult an attorney yourself. Make an appointment with me. You can Google me and find out, and I will specify exactly what you need to do for the situation you're in. Because on this video, I can only give generic things. I can give examples. I can give you things to think about, but I'm not trying to give legal advice here. I'm trying to get you to think before you head into a battle that could possibly affect 10, 15, 20 years of your life down the road. So let's not just jump in and do whatever because we can. Let's get the advice underneath our belts, so when we do take action, we know what we're doing. I'm going to ask you to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button.
Also, we do want to start getting feedback from you guys on what topics you have concerns about right now. Are you going through anything legally in your life? I mean, we will even touch on criminal cases, how to handle those down the line. But if you have something right now that you're like, ooh, I wish they would, give me tips or feedback or information on certain topics in regards to anything legal through the courts, anything like that, shoot us a reply on one of these videos. We will look at it. We will get the best video put together that we can, and give you our advice,
feedback.
give you our feedback.
Now, like I said, I'm going to stress this. I am not here to give legal advice. I'm only here. Yes, if you were to come into my office and start talking to you as an attorney, then we have an attorney-client relationship, and I'm going to give you advice that goes to your situation specifically and what we can do to help you.
Mm-hmm.
But on these videos, I'm not trying to do that. I'm simply trying to give you things to think about before you head into your attorney's office, before you go consult an attorney. There's things you need to know, behaviors that you need to nix before you even plan on taking somebody to court. Because if you look as dumb as they do when you show up to court because you can't keep your mouth shut and it runs like diarrhea out of your mouth, you're not going to win your case, and you're not going to win points with the judge either. Mm-hmm. The judge has to make a decision when it's strictly testimony on who they believe. When you're saying one thing and your ex is saying another thing, and the judge has to decide who's more believable.
But one's getting aggressive.
And one's yelling and screaming, or one has a line of text messages where they just call the other fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. The judge is not going to look at you and probably go, I don't know. I don't speak for a judge, but if I were a judge, I would say he's not believable. He's abusive. That's what he is. I'm going to believe the other party. Mm-hmm. So we need to talk about how to communicate and how to record this communication. Once again,
lots of topics.
I like text. I love text because text is a foolproof way to make sure every word that was stated is recorded. Mm-hmm. So if you are going up against anybody, get them to text you. Don't answer their phone call and say, I'm only receiving anything you have to say, you can say in text. Mm-hmm. But we'll get into that later. There's much more on these topics on how to prepare things. We've got to get going. We're over, what is it, an hour and 21 minutes at this point. So we got to cut this video short. I didn't mean to go that long, but here's the thing. I want this to become big, and it isn't for the revenue. I want this to become big because if you know how to deal with things when you deal with courts and deal with police and people in authority, even at your job, if you know how to deal with somebody and get them to do what you want and make them think that they decided to do what you wanted to do, if you can figure out how to do that, you can pretty much rule the world. Mm-hmm. So we're going to talk more about this, but we got to get going. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, pass this video on to other people so they can see it. And the prior video too, we want to do more videos as quickly as possible, but we've got to have the feedback. So do what you can, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye. So have a good day, and our next video should be out here within about a week max. I'm hoping within the next 3 days.